Good evening and welcome to the City of New Franklin Council meeting. We're going to start off tonight's meeting with our committee meetings. The first resolution is 24R67. Mr. Batts.
Thank you. We will open the Finance Committee meeting at 6 o'clock. Resolution 24R67, a resolution continuing the appointment of Herb Sugarman as New Franklin Law Director and setting compensation and declaring an emergency. Mr. Sugarman has been our law director since about 2018. Done a fabulous job. Previous compensation was $250 per hour. And the new rate will be $295 per hour. So I'm wondering if we should consider hiring a law director as opposed to farming it out like we currently do. In 2019, the first full year that Mr. Sugarman was our law director, we spent just under $70,000. $85,000 in 2020, $97,000 in 21, 22 was a great year for us, only about $68,000. In 2023, we spent over $100,000, 101. Through September, we spent $116,000, and if we extrapolate that out, the end of the year, we could be looking at over $150,000. I suspect that we'll have reasons for spending that much money in the next few years, also with things that are going on. It just seems to me that maybe we should think about hiring somebody. Our communities around us that we tend to compare ourselves to all the time for no reason at all, but we do. They all have law directors. Two of them are elected officials. One is appointed. Those are my thoughts. Y'all?
I like it.
I think it's an interesting approach. I don't disagree with it. Well, one of my concerns was that one of our current, the biggest project that potentially is going to hit this community is represented by the same firm. To me, it just seems like the optics might not be as good having our in-house law firm being in the same house as the firm representing the big development. And that's just one of my concerns. Potential view, or whether it's a conflict or not, there's the optics of there may be a conflict there. So that's just one of my concerns.
Okay.
And I think having it in-house, I think that offers more benefits to us, where you've got that person at your disposal at any given time.
Others?
I also think because Mr. Sugarman is moving to a larger company, there is a very good chance of future conflicts on different things inside of our community. So I think we need to either look for somebody to be on staff or also look at a different strategy, as maybe looking at some other companies as well.
Can we get an attorney for $150,000 with this?
Well, I don't know. I don't know, but from what I have limitedly looked into, it appears that the attorneys still work for their law firm. So they're not necessarily a full-time employee of the city, with this being their only job.
And I can see, where I work, we do that same thing. Our legal counsel is basically, it's a part-time employee of the city essentially, but they actually have a firm they work, and they do that for other communities as well.
Now, I think it's fair to notice that Mr. Adams is probably going right now. So we'll let him share his thoughts on it if he has any.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, the purpose of this resolution now is a result of the, I'll call it a merger, but acquisition, whatever it was, of Rouse McDowell by Retzel and Andrus. And so for us to, and the buildings will come through Retzel and Andrus. And so we need a resolution authorizing him as a law director, as a member of Retzel and Andrus, so that we can that we can pay him for those services. So short term, that's what this one's about. I looked at the rate he said in here, I think was $2.95 an hour.
Yes.
And I think that's where he is right now. The larger question, it's certainly worth considering and discussing. I want to mention as far as the Water9 project, the attorney for that group is Jason Dodson, and he's a member of Retzel and Andrews. And when, I won't say it was a surprise, I don't know if anybody really saw this coming, but it sort of unfolded. Rouse we're going in a number of different directions, then started talking to Retzel. We knew this was a possibility. So we do have on file a conflict of interest agreement pursuant to which if there's any litigation relative to the Water9 project, that neither firm would represent the parties. So that Mr. Sugarman would not represent the city, and Mr. Dodson Retzel would not be representing Mr. Atkins. So I think we're protected in that regard. We do have another attorney on board on that one, at least that is conversant with it, Jason Butterworth, because we've talked to him and met with him. We haven't had to pay anything for his services relative to the possibility of financing issues relative. So he's conversant in that area. So if it turns out we need legal advice in that area, and we've got somebody on deck, and we'll be able to avoid, we won't be in a conflict situation. In terms of, among the things that come to mind is, an employee versus, a 1099. So we'd be taking on benefits and those kind of things. And off the top of my head, because this is the first time we've talked about it. And the second thing is this, municipal law is a very specialized area. There's just not that many attorneys who do it. Now, the big firms all will have attorneys who will do that, but that's about it. You don't really see too many sole practitioners that specialize in municipal law because really they can't. Whether or not you'd be able to get somebody that was competent, capable, and want to hire them on a full-time basis, I think it's something worth discussing. But there's some potential obstacles. I will say this, as far as, and I think you guys know this, we've had a lot going on, an awful lot going on. We've pressed some things that I can't even think of the laundry list, but we've pressed some issues, zoning issues, we've pressed some unsightly areas, we've litigated some things that maybe in the past were let go. We have any number of major projects going on, federal funding, state funding, et cetera, et cetera. It just takes a lot of eyes. And we have big things, we have little things. Then we just have a lot. So I'm open to the discussion on that by all means. But as far as this particular resolution, I'd like to get it passed just because, there's a housekeeping matter because now he's with Progressive.
I think this is something that I think we should consider waiving the 3 on and passing to continue what we have. But I also think it's something that we need to think about and look into much more. And I don't know that it has to be a full-time person, as Mr. That guy there in red mentioned. It doesn't have to be a full-time person, and if it's not a full-time person, benefits may not be an issue. But again, if we're spending $150,000 this year, and we've got a lot going on, what are we going to be spending next year, the year after, et cetera? And as we grow, we're going to continue to have concerns and issues. So unless anybody has a concern, I would suggest we waive the 3 on this. But I also, I don't know what the next step would be to look into, moving to a different situation for us.
So that's a great question. What are the logistics here, Mr. Mayor, if we don't pass this?
Well, you have to quit working for us right now because we can no longer issue payments to Browse because he's not employed with Browse. So we'd be without legal counsel if we don't pass this.
So what other firms, let's just say, you're talking about Mr. Butterworth?
Yeah.
So is his firm a larger firm, or what is the?
That's Brennan, Manna, Diamond. I don't know that how many, we've got somebody on the panel who knows some of these things too. But that's one of the larger firms. Buckingham Doolittle Burroughs is one of the larger firms. They all charge large fees too. One of the benefits, and I get the notion with conflict, and these guys will routinely do a conflict check whenever a new client comes in. And I know Mr. Sugarman has done that, and we've been fortunate. And Browse was not a real small firm. I can't remember how many attorneys they had. I don't know, 30, 40, something like that, maybe in that range. And so, at least to this point, either it's just good luck or whatever, we have not had a conflict situation. One of the benefits of being part of a larger firm is that there's more tools in the bag if you need it. We've had a lot going on relative to the Tudor House, doing the management agreement, and then building the first building, and dealing with the prevailing wage and these kind of things. And so they have Browse at that time had an attorney who specialized in that. We were able to plug into them. So that's sort of it's a mixed it's a mixed blessing or curse when you get a little larger firm, because you have more specialty areas in there.
Sure. And if we go the route of a part-time law director, that person would most likely still be working for a law firm, so there's still the possibility
Right.
of conflict of interest, depending on whatever situation may come up.
Another thing I noticed was a lot of contracts you enter into, there's a period of time that the contract is good for. This one seemed open-ended. What are the reasons for that?
Just because, your law director position, if we're dissatisfied, we can terminate just like they can. So it's really at will. So there's a benefit both ways. We're not bound to it. If for some reason we become uncomfortable, we can terminate the agreement.
It says at any time for any reason. I read notice.
And again, this is not saying anything negative about Mr. Sugarman or the job he has done for us. He's done a fantastic job for us and been very supportive. And every conversation I've had with him or with his assistants have been fantastic. And so this is just looking at dollars and cents for the city.
And what you're saying, Ed, I don't feel comfortable just saying, yes, let's go on. I mean, we're talking our citizens' tax dollars here. If we're going to be spending $100,000 with any law firm over the year, if we have an opportunity right now to price it and see if there is somebody that fits us better at a better price.
We can do that while Mr. Sugarman continues to represent us. Without passing this tonight, we don't have legal counsel, and I can tell you we're in the middle of any number of legal issues. We don't want the city in a situation without legal counsel. I can assure you of that.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
I
We could look, you can pass this and we can start looking.
So what happens if we ask for time on this tonight? He'd still be representing us then, correct?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if we waited, we got another meeting in 2 weeks, we asked for time on it, you could have some time to look at some other resources and stuff and get something back to us.
I would not, within 2 weeks, be in a position to recommend anybody else as a law director. We've got pending litigation. We were in the middle of intricate legal matters. This is not in the city's best interest to just pop somebody in. This isn't like a plumber, and we're going to get somebody who's a little cheaper. Okay, you're going to have somebody who knows what they're doing, and somebody who's conversant with what we have going on. A hunt for a new attorney, which, by the way, I don't believe that we need, because I think he's very capable, and I'm familiar with what attorneys charge, and these are standard fees for top-notch lawyers in specialized areas. So if I felt we had the wrong guy, I said, let's go shopping. But I don't. And it's not something we can do in a blink or 2 weeks or 4 weeks, even if we wanted to. Now, if you want to explore the idea of trying to hire somebody, that's a different story. And I just take some time and do it and see who's out there. In the meantime, we need representation.
Again, as the mayor has mentioned, this is basically a housekeeping issue. It's basically transferring who we write the check to. So it's not committing to anything beyond that. So it is in the city's best interest, I believe, that we go ahead and pass this tonight. But I also believe it's in the city's best interest that we start looking at what our options are. Our number one option may be to keep doing what we're doing. But I think we need to look at and explore what our options are, what our options could be. And again, quality of service, price of service. And so that's my thoughts on it. If anybody wants to take time, we absolutely will take time.
Just out of curiosity, I see the letter from Mr. Sugarman was dated, I believe, October 22nd. When did the city get their first notification that this was happening?
Probably 4 to 6 weeks before that, which is why we looked into the conflict issue and addressed the conflict issue. There was just some delay in the firm, in Retzel getting this out, because there was a lot going on at Retzel incorporating these attorneys on staff.
Shall we wait to 3 or take time?
Probably wait would be the time to do that.
I agree, but again, if anybody wants to take time, we'll take time.
Greg, what's your thoughts?
I come from a very uninformed position, but maybe a person to my right can help.
I'm gonna stay quiet with this.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think that hurting, I mean, if you guys are ready to vote, I don't want to impede any voting, but I'm very neutral on this.
I'd like to add that Eric said he's gonna stay out because he works for Russell and Andrews, so it's not like he's staying out because he wants to stay out of it. He is employed by them, which would be a conflict as well. But the one thing I was interested in, I think that some other questions will be answered by this, is that in the contract says either of us may terminate our engagement at any time for any reason by written notice. Who has that authority to terminate that? Is that council has to, or is it the mayor exclusively?
You guys point. I have to look at the charter. It would be on my recommendation for sure, or council could unilaterally.
Is it something like just proposed amendment? Be like, all right,
Director of Law, attorney licensed during the term, minimum 5 years of public practice experience in municipal and governmental law, legal advisor on all legal matters, positions to perform other duties, municipal nothing attorney, counsel from contracting. I'll have to study that. It would appear that it would be the mayor.
or do we want to have discussion on what Jim brought up, other legal counsel? Because it sounds like we can take time on it and discuss it for 2 weeks. It'd be all right, and we can discuss that matter further.
I don't think we need to take time. Again, this is just a housekeeping thing.
I just remember you brought up
It's
the
not-
discussion of it.
What we do in 2 weeks is not, there's not, as the mayor mentioned, and makes total sense, there's nothing that we can do in 2 weeks to change. We have to put a lot of time and effort into it. And if, really, the only thing this is changing is who we write the check to. And it doesn't change anything else, but it provided us the opportunity to begin the discussions.
So it sounds like it's gonna take you a few months if you were to look for somebody else to, let's just say 3 months to find somebody.
Probably. That would be fair.
So could we put an end date in this resolution, which will kind of hold our feet to the fire to at least do our due diligence and look and see what's out there and then come back? And if it comes back that,
Well, I think before we look for a replacement, and I don't know that we need a replacement, but I think before we start looking for a replacement, we should be looking at whether it makes sense to. We should be, does a law director make sense for our community at this stage? Does a full-time or part-time make sense for us? Does the compensation of said full-time or part-time law director makes sense for us. We don't have any of that information, so before we can start looking for a person to possibly fill that position, we need to figure out what that position is, what that position is going to cost us. And until we have that information, we can't make any decision. And I don't think we should be looking to replace anybody at this point. I think we should just be looking at what are our options. And if we decide a few months down, again, we have opportunity to cancel the contract at any time and move on to somebody else at any time without any big deal. But I don't think we should be putting dates on anything. Mr. Sherman has been our law director since 2018. We've got a lot going on. We need to continue that relationship. And then just look at what our options are. And once we know what our options are and we're comfortable with our options, then we can discuss whether we want to get somebody else.
All right, and so I guess my thought on that was, Mayor said 3 months might be enough time to find. I'm just saying if we put a termination date on this in like 6 months, and that doesn't mean we are now no longer going to use HERB. What that means is that just gives, we could come back with another piece of legislation and start, and renew that contract essentially. But that would give us time, it kind of holds everyone's feet to the fire to do our due diligence, see if it makes sense to have somebody on staff versus having a legal firm, on contract to do this. And all that stuff can be done 6 months from now. If we decide that, yes, this is who we want to be with and this is the best option, we just do another piece of legislation and approve it for a longer period of time.
Okay.
If I can offer this, as has been mentioned, the contract's terminable at will. The 3 months or 6 months, what's that designed to do? To make sure that we have the discussion?
Yes.
Because what other purposes are for that?
Pardon?
What other purposes are for a deadline other than to make sure that we talk about it and decide what we want to
To
do?
make sure we're actually looking at it and we have that discussion, so because
So do we need a deadline to make that happen? I mean, we're talking about it today. We can talk about it in 2 weeks. You guys aren't going to disappear. I'm here every day. You can send me emails. It's not like the whole idea is going to disappear. I don't understand why we want to put just an arbitrary deadline. Because you got somebody on the other side of this as well. All right? An attorney who's looking at what, a 3-month contract, a 6-month contract? And what happens in 6 months? I don't know. Do we transition right then? Are we ready to transition? I respect the fact that let's talk about whether you want to hire a law director. Because we've got a really good law director.
I mean, I think things have changed since the last couple months. One, right? I mean, when there's a merger, acquisition, whatever it was, there's winners and losers, right? There's certain things that happen. And that's when, we've got a council member that won't talk about it because of that. And I'm not saying that, but
Right.
should it be our way, we have a water line, before the water line was not, that was 2 separate entities, right? Sugarman was over here, now they came together, and now, we got paperwork, we'll do a conflict. And unfortunately, it's great, but this guy here also works at that place. I think it just makes sense. I'm not saying to have that legislation will hold your feet to the fire, but I'm just saying it does make a lot of sense to, hey man, Herb, I don't know, I've never talked to Herb, I don't know him, he's probably a wonderful man. Right here. Yeah, so I'm not trying to say it, but sometimes the appearance is I'm really, now, so 2 things happened that make things sort of weird. One is through the acquisition, now we have same guys that are potentially the water line. You know the water line. We know what's going to happen there. And we have a council member that works there. And who probably just feels really uncomfortable right now. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a look at something.
And that's really, like I say, if there wasn't this acquisition, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. It's just
It's probably good we had the acquisition because the conversation is a healthy one, whether or not you want to hire somebody or whether you don't. So I guess it's a good thing that it came to the head and you guys had a chance to talk about it.
I think it's just the appearance. And I know, once again, I'm looking at it through a different set of eyes than you. And I can appreciate your view, and just, I hope you appreciate mine.
Mr. Powell, when you say the appearance, the conflict issue is resolved. What appearance are you talking about?
You understand the conflict issue is resolved. I'm not saying that the typical resident is going to, or if they would even believe it, or, I mean, I can understand the skepticism why they would not believe it. Because there's a lot of people that believe this entire water project is driven by the city. We know it's not. My point is, there's that whole segment out there. And I don't want to continue to drive a wedge in with just blindly going into a contract with a firm that is essentially representing. And this is just my thoughts.
I appreciate that.
For me, I just owe this to at least voice my opinion and have concerns.
No, I'm glad we're talking about it. And when we talk about the Water9 project, to this point, I'm just trying to decide if the attorney, Jason Dodson represents, he's their representative for, so whether he's functioning in his capacity as an attorney or whether he's functioning in his capacity as the lead on that project, that's between him and Mr. Atkins, okay? But from the city's perspective, we really haven't gotten into legal issues. And we may not. This has been a matter of, this is a zoning issue. You get into legal issues if it becomes contentious. Okay, you get into legal issues. It may not be the only way, but the logical way you're going to end up in legal is if somehow this gets turned down and the developer feels like he hasn't been treated fairly. All right. At that point in time, you have litigation. Not unusual. We see it all over the county. Planning and zoning turns something down, and the developer sues. Okay. In this case, if the developer sues, they're not going to be represented by Retzel and Andrews. And the city is not going to be represented by Eric Sugarman. So there really is, it goes beyond the potential for appearance of impropriety. I get it. And, hopefully we got smart people that live here. I would trust that if we explained that, they would understand that. So I wouldn't want to see you get bogged down on that particular issue relative to this piece of legislation. This piece of legislation is just whose name we're writing the check to. While we have, a large number of legal issues that, and they come up short and they come up quick. It's today I got him looking at something about open burning. In a couple of days he'll probably be looking about something about fireworks. I mean, this stuff happens quick, and we gotta have somebody on board. I don't want somebody on board and wonder if he's going to get paid.
I would like to apologize for bringing this subject up. I should have waited until next meeting because I think we're putting too much into this resolution. We should just be dealing with this resolution. I brought up some thoughts, and I think we're just putting too much into what is happening tonight. And we need to move on with this resolution tonight, but I believe that we need to look at what our options are going down the road. I think we need to move forward with this, and it's just who we write the check to. And at this point, we honestly don't have any other option. Until we do our due diligence and do our work on it.
That's the key, Jim, I believe. We don't have another option.
I gotta tell you, coming into the meeting, I was a solid no. I was going to vote no on this. After the conversation, I don't know how I feel. I would like to look at the options of, I'm not saying I'm asking for time in this particular time, but if I did, in 2 weeks from now, have a draft of how we're going to look at this over the next year. Whether we're going to get some names, we're going to look at this, we're going to look at how we're spending our money, because we need to be cautious how we spend our tax dollars. I would be comfortable if we had, waiting until next meeting to go forward with this, if we had some type of a direction in writing that we were all going to be held to, and discussion topics, so we can all think about it ahead of time. I would have loved to have this information, when it first came to the city's knowledge, like we've been thinking about it 4 to 6 weeks ago, as opposed to last Friday. That would have given me more time to ask you some questions, had a meeting with you, and things like that, so, that's my thoughts.
So, are you asking for time? Or are you comfortable, taking this to vote tonight and then at our next meeting have the, plan put together like you were talking about?
I'm telling you, I'm gonna vote one of 2 ways. I'm either voting no tonight if we're going to just voting on this. If you wanna go and, ask for time and get some type of a plan together, I am totally agree with that.
Well, it's up to any member if they want to take time or if they want to
I
proceed with
would
this.
have to echo Barry's sentiment on that. Just with not having a whole lot of time to think about this, I would rather have an extra 2 weeks with something written up and then,
What do you want me to write up?
well, just,
And I don't know that it's necessarily his job to write that up. If this is a council initiative, that should be, people on council should come up with what their thoughts are and what their needs are. But until then, and that's something we can work on, but until then, again, this is just who we write the check to. It's nothing else changes. It's nothing else. It doesn't, the contract isn't any different than what we had before. It's just, we move on with this resolution and we absolutely start a committee, a subcommittee or whatever, to look into what our options are, whether it's a different firm, which I don't know is necessary, but maybe, whether it is a part-time or full-time law director, or whether it's just keep on doing what we're doing and be satisfied with what we got going on. But again, this is just who we write the check to.
Well, in that case, let's just make it simple. I'm gonna ask for time. We'll take 2 weeks.
Okay.
We'll come back. Gotta give me a little time to think about it. If someone wants to get together with me and write up a plan, I'd be happy to do so. If that's a thorn in your side, hate to be the thorn in your side.
Oh, it's not from my side. The cities would be, potentially one without counsel. But I'm sure that, that Irv will work with us and continue to represent us and assume that, that eventually you'll keep him on board until you decide to get somebody else. I can't tell you that I'm going to suggest to you another plan at this point in time. I'll give it some thought. But I've been involved in the legal community for a few years, and I'm familiar with attorneys who practice in municipal law. And I'm familiar with where you find them. I don't expect that you're going to get the quality of representation that the city of New Franklin deserves by trying to hire somebody who's not affiliated with a firm. And whether they do it as a sidelight or whether because Hudson as well, I don't know who you were referring to, but they also use other firms. They use a big Cleveland firm, I can't remember. I've talked to them.
they quit doing municipal.
So in any event, that's how it's done. But I'm more than happy to give everybody a chance to get up to speed on that and talk about it. But I don't want to mislead you to suggest that I'm going to come back in 2 weeks and say, here's what I think we ought to do. I think we ought to hire somebody and go part-time and strike. I think I'm totally in for the discussion and for explore it and let's find out. Let's all educate each other on it. So but I just don't want to mislead you in terms of what happens with the 2 weeks. You want another 2 weeks? I understand.
Okay, so we will ask for time. Next resolution is Resolution 24R68. Mr. Schaefer.
Resolution granting wage increases for certain full-time and part-time non-union job classifications and declaring an emergency. We've had multiple executive sessions on this, and I'll open it up to council and the mayor to throw out their comments.
Well, from the mayor's standpoint, this is the sort of the final piece. We have about 61 full-time employees. The police, the fire, and the service department are all represented by unions. And We go through the bargaining process with them on a 3-year basis. And we've concluded all of that. Council has approved all of those contracts. And we generally follow them with the non-union. We have had an opportunity to discuss this with council, and I've had a chance to share my recommendations with council over the past several weeks, culminating in this resolution. I would say the suggested salary increases are based on merit and also on comparables. And this, I've kind of come to call it the year of the equity raise. And it's really started, and we talked about this in open meetings with the police side of things, that New Franklin, unfortunately, historically, has been below the comparables, pretty much across the board for every classification, in terms of what police, fire, safety, administration, service people make in other similar municipal government positions. And that data is available through the state. And so over the course of time, it can make it difficult to retain your current staff and recruit competent people, capable people. As is well known, these days in this country, it's hard to find people to work. It doesn't really matter what trade it is. It's tough finding good people. It's tough keeping good people, and reached a point, and it's sort of kind of followed in sequence, almost like dominoes falling, because we started with the police, and we were in a situation where our rates were well below the standard, to the point where we were at risk of losing good people and could no longer recruit people. Part-time is gone, pretty much, in police and fire. And so we looked at that, and it became in the best interest of the city to grant a significant equity increase to get the police department up to comparables. And it actually already paid off in the sense that we were able to keep some staff that we might otherwise have lost. We came next to fire, and we were in the same situation. We used to have 8 or 9 part-time firefighters, now we got 2. We've got an opening over there. We had 8 people apply, and there's already 4 that dropped off and went somewhere else. So it's hard to keep people. And so we followed suit with the fire department. Service department, the same thing. And so we followed suit in that regard. So this is the final piece. The recommendations that I've made and that we've discussed with council are based on comparable rates across municipalities. Many of these are at the lower end of those comparables. You take a range of $24 to $28 an hour, and we plug something in around 24. Those types of things. Our police and fire non-union folks. That's our police chief and our captain and our fire chief and our assistant chief. We have transitioned and recommending transitioning into a rank differential, which is also common in many safety forces, so that you make certain that the people who are supervising are making more than the people that they are supervising. And there's a number of ways to do that. The fire contract has an 8% differential for all their various ranks already built into their contract. The city of Akron does a 10% differential in the fire department, and what's recommended here is a 5% differential for those positions. And so that's on section 2, which talks about the wage scale increase for non-union salary positions. Also included then there is our road superintendent. We tried to hit a balance in there. The finance director to below the comparables for assistant finance directors in other departments. I think the others, the hourly rates are as previously discussed. So, I think these are fair, I think they're equitable, I think they're consistent with what we've done with the other employees. I think it's a really good thing for the city that we solidify where we are. And we lock up our staff, and we're offering a competitive, comparable, fair rate of pay for the people that work for us. This is not something that would happen every year, and I think when we get into the next couple of years, we won't see raises like these. This is the year that we try to hit the balance. I know we've had plenty of discussion about it. I invited council about 2.5 weeks ago. If you have thoughts about it, please let me know. I was contacted by several members, and I didn't hear anything that suggested changing any of these numbers. So I'm hopeful council will approve this tonight and let us move forward.
Council, any thoughts, comments?
So, if I may, I'm in favor of people getting raises where raises are deserved. I'm not in favor of just across the board raises and say thank you very much. If we have employees that are hitting goals, exceeding goals, helping the city, coming up with innovative ways for the city to be more efficient, for the city to save money, going above and beyond, they should be rewarded properly. If we have employees that are in a position and they're not doing their job very well, they are basically just clocking in, clocking out, they should not be rewarded the same as other people. I've said this every year. I haven't changed. I'll continue to say it. I am against just here you go type thing. The non-union staff needs to have proper evaluations, goals set, and yearly reviews, and compensation should be set based on that. We have some really great employees within the city. We had at our last meeting, a fireman came in here with a way for us to improve efficiency, eventually save money with the new telephone system. And he's a full-time firefighter, so there's nothing that's going to affect his wages, but he shows he cares. We have other employees that are doing the same thing. And then, of course, we do have employees, unfortunately, any company or any organization you'll have, that basically come in, clock in, and do the minimal and leave. And but we're going to all reward them the same because it's fair. It's not fair. Life isn't fair. I'm sorry. I will vote no on this, as I have every year. Again, I'm not opposed to people getting raises. I'm opposed to people. I'm in favor of people getting proper raises.
If I may, I want to go back, because when I first introduced this, what I said was that these proposed increases are based on comparables and they're also based on merit, not just comparables. I don't see them as just across the board raises. I think it's significant to note that in the unions, there is no merit issue. And I think we're blessed. I'm not day to day with the police and fire guys. I see what I see and I hear what I hear, and we get the same reviews. To my knowledge, we've got in the service department the same way. We've got really good people that are working really hard in all of those departments. But I don't know that for fact, and I'm guessing that there's probably a couple police that are maybe a little stronger than a couple others, and there's probably a couple fire that maybe they're a little stronger than a couple others. Let me finish. But they're all getting the same. They all get the same. So it's not based on merit, okay? When it comes to these folks, I just want to say, some people work harder than others. We do performance evaluations every year. I have no issues with anybody on this list. Everybody on this list, I will tell you, in my observation, is working hard and working effectively. If you're here and you're here every day, we don't have people goofing off. Nobody's playing solitaire on their screen. Nobody's reading magazines. Everybody's working. They're working hard. And we got a good product. And the work gets done. And it's a pleasant atmosphere. And so these are merit-based to that extent. If we had somebody that wasn't performing, well, then we'd be weeding that person out, and we'd be working on those people. But so to that extent, these are based on merit. They're not just numbers we pick out of the air.
Any other comments? I'm waving the three. Mr. Allman?
Jim, would you feel more comfortable if this was proposed as less than an all or nothing approach?
No, it has nothing to do with it.
Okay, I just know you're talking about it a little bit like that.
So I guess we're gonna waive the three.
Thank you. We will close the finance committee at 6:46.
We have one more supplemental.
Oh,
Yeah, supplemental.
is that mine? All right.
This is from the gym tonight.
Yeah, I guess so. Let's see, where are we?
Oh, this was an add-on.
Yeah.
The supplemental.
That's all.
2460.
All right. 24R69, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Arcadius US Incorporated for preparation of the National Environmental Policy Act and EPA report as required for receipt of the $959,752 community grant from the 2024 federal fiscal year appropriations and declaring an emergency. And this is something that we've talked about at previous meetings, where these impact studies, these environmental studies need to be done in order to receive the grant. And this grant is what will help get water from where we currently have water up through the nursing home, the Tudor House, and to the new welcome center at the state park, like we've talked about. So this just confirms that. Total price of this is going to be $35,744. Questions, comments?
And that comes out to the grant, right?
That'll eventually come out of the grant, right?
The grant is $959,752.
Right.
And I remember the mayor sent an email out. Oh, it's $750,000 was the estimated total this will cover.
That was the original estimate, the 750. So they're doing final cost estimates, but we also have we'll have a cost share agreement with Aqua.
20%.
The local share is 20% of the grant. So they'll pick up at least that. So there'll be sufficient funds here to cover this expense.
Questions, comments? Comfortable waiving three? I'd like to thank Mr. Schaefer for his assistance in this. And we will now close the finance committee at 6:48.
I'll officially call to order the City of New Franklin Council meeting for November 6th. Here, please join me with public allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Cox?
Yes, present.
Mr. Schaefer?
Present.
Mrs. Jones?
Present.
Mr. Powell?
Present.
Mr. Stiles?
Present.
Mr. Wolf?
Present.
Mr. Almond?
Present.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes for the regularly scheduled meeting of October 16th.
Second.
We have a first and a second.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
All right, next is going to be our public comment. If you have anything you'd like to say, please state your name and address. And
I'm Judy Costco, and I'm here
I need your address, please.
10715 Strasser. It's Canal Pullman.
Thank you.
I'm here about the cemetery. The new rules are devastating, to say the least. And like I said earlier, my father-in-law's been buried there for a little over 50 years. Had his grave edged and mulched and in good shape all these years. And then my mother-in-law went in 2008. And now my husband and I have the graves right beside him. And so my husband passed away in January. And so I edged his and mulched. And there's the little spot where they would mow in between. Well, I thought I figured I would save time and energy or whatever, trying to get through all there. So I just took that little bit of grass out and mulched there. And then still, once behind the cemetery, or behind the stone, it's grass. It's just in between. And I bought a little gate, about like that. And my husband's been a mechanic for over 60 years. And the kids wanted one of his wrenches on the gate. So we put the wrench on the gate and put it up there and put 2 solar lights and 1 solar light on my in-laws and put some nice flowers. We had the silk flowers this year. And we've always maintained the graves. And our son went up Saturday and he called me and says, Mom, the gate and the wrench is gone. He didn't even know this about the lights. He was devastated over the other stuff. So I drove up. And I was sick. And the cemetery is bare. And it just looks like a ghost town. And there's no need for it to have to look like that. Like I said, our oldest son lives in Massillon and his property butts up to Brookfield Cemetery. And there's so many solar lights and it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. And you can just see the love that people put in the graves. Because we buried our loved ones there. And so now, I'm not allowed to put the gate back up. I'm not allowed to put no solar lights. And it's devastating. It's just crazy. And I know there's been all over Facebook, people are complaining. And I wanted to come and voice my opinion here and see if anybody would have a heart and let us decorate our graves with a little bit of common sense. I know there's some up there that people get carried away and they don't maintain, they put all this stuff around. But that's not the case with our graves. And I would sure like for you to rethink this situation and let us have a little bit of personal stuff there that means so much to the family. And from the lights. Thank you very much.
Let me say, there's nobody in the room that's not sympathetic to your situation. And that's the first time I heard you speak, and I understand. I don't understand your particular loss, but I understand the emotion that's involved. To the extent that I've talked with Brian about this, I'm aware that there was some Facebook. I had one other call on this, and here's the explanation, as best I can offer it. There was a lot of time spent reviewing and updating the cemetery rules, and everything else about the cemetery as well. The plots and really get a nice database together. But that's another story. When it came to cemetery rules, we had several meetings, and over more than a year, if I'm not mistaken, or at least through a year, we had sample rules from a number of area cemeteries. And so the rules that were eventually adopted were sort of an amalgam of what makes sense and what happens at other cemeteries. But Mrs. Costco points out, it is part of the problem. That it's one size doesn't fit all. And so I'm sure what you had there was very well presented. It wasn't consistent, as I understand it from Brian, with the rules. Unfortunately, at least at this point, we don't have a mechanism where we can say from the standpoint of aesthetics, this one's okay. It's outside the rules, but it's okay because it looks nice. But this one is outside the rules and it has to go. That's when that becomes very, very difficult, because who's making that call? I will say my understanding and my involvement of it was, I sat at those meetings. I believe we have rules that are generally consistent with what we see at cemeteries throughout Summit County. I asked Brian about the timing. He advised me that there were notices for the last 8 weeks in the Leader that things were going to be moved. And I know that, from my experience over at Holy Cross, you put them up, there's days they're going to take them down, they're all gone. If you want your wreath, you better go get it. Because on the day that it's coming off, it's coming off. So that's not unusual. So there was 8 weeks notice. It was on our website. Unfortunately, but everybody didn't see it. And the ones who didn't had this really unfortunate surprise. The only thing I could suggest is council and administration, I guess, maybe take another look at what's permitted there and see if we want to expand that. I haven't heard or thought about solar lights before. I don't know what the feeling is there. I do know that one of the issues, the longstanding issue, has been the difficulty in mowing and trimming when you have too much there. So it's just as one of those deals where it's, you could say a few people ruin it for everybody, but
That's why I mulch.
I appreciate what you're saying.
Trim.
Yeah.
Is that removal triggered by a date, or I'm trying to remember what the policy is.
Semi-annual date, April 1st, November 1st.
Yeah.
And it's posted. Yeah.
Right.
So that they can have decorations out during that winter. Is there, like if you go over to certain cemeteries, they've got postings, as you pull into any of the entrance gates, put them up there weeks in advance saying that after this date stuff will be removed. Did we do anything like that?
I don't know the answer.
It's there now. Well, I don't, everything isn't on it, but there is a sign posting.
We had talked about a sign. I didn't go and look and see if it was up.
And it sounds like maybe a few ruined it, or I shouldn't say ruined it. They were a little bit over the top with their decorations, and so everybody pays for that. And I do think that's hard. And that's almost having to look at it on a case by case. And then what do you do if someone says, well, Judy, your grave does not look the way Mr. West does, and decide that I have to move mine. Here again, it's a case by case, and who's going to make that decision? That's going to be difficult.
I will send the rules out to everybody again, and maybe we all take another look. And
Take another look. We got a few months to have some discussion on it.
I do have my copy card.
okay.
Thank you for bringing that concern to us.
Did you get your wrench back?
Yes, they told me where to go and I
Okay.
got through it and
I was going to say they still have everything that they picked up.
I didn't find none of the flowers. They were all silk flowers and I was gonna take a moment, wash them and use them next year.
They were gone.
They're gone. And the one post for the one silver light was gone. But it just looks
I'm sure that's right.
so much nicer if you've got some light, like it's not a ghost town, it's a sacred place for families.
And that's exactly what it is.
Pardon?
That's exactly what it is. Because the family gain comfort there.
Right.
You know you love one from heaven with God, but you realize you can go there and visit.
66 years we were together.
Long time.
Do you have anybody else with anything they'd like to discuss, bring up?
Question. Hi there, Joe Hefner, Green Valley Drive. What is Water 9?
What is your address?
1074 Green Valley Drive.
Thank you.
So the water line is a proposed project that is going to take place on the former 9 holes that was on the water at Turkey Golf Course. It's a housing development. That's done by a private developer.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, that'll close public comments. Get into our first readings. Resolution 24R67, Kelly.
A resolution continuing the appointment of Irving Sugarman as new Franklin Law Director, setting compensation, and declaring an emergency.
This resolution is assigned to the Finance Committee. We'd like to ask for time on this resolution.
Time was requested, time was granted. Resolution 24R68, Kelly.
A resolution granting wage increases for certain full-time and part-time, non-union job classifications and declaring an emergency.
This was also assigned to the Finance Committee, and we're going to make a motion to waive the 3.
Second.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 24-R-68.
Second.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
No.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. Resolution 24R69, Kelly.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Arcadius US Incorporated for preparation of the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA report as required for receipt of the $959,752 community grant from the 2024 federal fiscal year appropriations and declaring an emergency.
This resolution is assigned to the Finance Committee. We move to waive resolution 24R69, waive the 3 readings.
Second.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
We move to adopt resolution 24R69.
Second.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes. Resolution passes 7-0. Got no second or third readings. Move on to our favorite part, the mayor's report.
Each week, I'm happy to hear that. Let's see. Well, first of all, we want to congratulate one of our former council members, Jack Daniels, and his successful re-election, I guess, he retained his seat as a state representative. So Jack has already been active. He did a great job when he was up here on council. It's great to have a friend in Columbus. I'm sure he will fairly represent his entire district, but it certainly helps a lot when the representative that you're kind of lobbying or looking for support is directly familiar with the issues. So we're happy for him, and we're happy that he's going to get an opportunity to serve the people of this district for the next 2 years. Also, I want to thank the voters for approving all of the charter amendments, and
Except one.
oh, that go the other way?
10,000.
Oh, I looked at it this morning. I thought it went
That's
the other
because
way.
they said that on one of them, they changed the knowing
Oh,
that.
no, yeah. Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, it was close then, wasn't it? All right. So the others.
10 to 15.
All right. All right. It's
4 out of 5.
yeah. I mean, we didn't lobby any of those. Just as a point of reference, that one was suggested, really the suggestion came more from council, if I'm not mistaken, from council members as opposed to the mayor saying it ought to be higher. So we'll trundle along with 10,000. It's, I'm sorry. My only regret is that people misunderstood what that was about and didn't really understand the issue. And maybe we should have lobbied it a little bit. The present value of $10,000 from 2006, is probably 20 grand. I didn't do the math on it, but so that's really what that was all about. Okay. Yeah, they flipped the numbers. Okay, good. All right. Of note, then, is the date for the primary election, and that will then move to May. It's close to Thanksgiving or so before the Board of Election actually certifies all the results. But we'll talk more about that, and that's going to advance the timeline for submission of petitions, which is 90 days prior to the primary. I think the primary will turn out to be somewhere around May 5th, so we're somewhere around February 5th or so, somewhere in that range, for the 3 at-large seats in the mayor's position to have petitions filed. So we'll talk more about that. We want people to be aware of that, and if they're interested in those positions, that's something that used to be filed in June, but now they're going to have to be filed in no later than the first part of February. And we got the other housekeeping things that got approved. All right. Well, 4 out of 5 is not bad. All right. The Water 9 development meeting is next Thursday, the 14th, at 6:30, and we've moved that back here based upon the attendance or lack of at the last meeting. There was really no reason to inconvenience the church again, and plus the acoustics are better in here anyway. So that'll take place next Thursday, the 14th at 6:30. The following Thursday, the 21st, will be the continuation of the Tudor House conditional application public hearing, and that again will be 6:30. and We'll be here in this room. Making final tweaks on the budget. We'll be presenting that pretty soon. The wild card, and a couple of things are moving around a little bit, but based on discussions that we had during the budget meetings. So we're working on that. But the health insurance was the unknown piece. And first of all, business is always business when I'm talking to you, men and ladies, and I want you to know that. And I've never taken anything personal, and I won't, because it's not. So we've bounced around a little bit today. That's okay. But I got some good news. It starts with really scary news, and it's not in the bank yet. We got our first renewal from MedMutual for health insurance. On our budget meetings, we budgeted at 20%. The renewal came in at 37%.
37.8.
37.8%. Yeah. We were talking to the Ohio Municipal League, had a program that they thought might be helpful to us, and there's a number of municipalities and school boards, et cetera, that are in there. They needed Form Fire, which I appreciate everybody's cooperation on that, to run their data. While we had Form Fire, we were able to use it also with our broker for her to do some shopping. I won't go into details. I will just tell you that the information, our broker came back with some numbers recently. We still have not heard from the Municipal League, and I'm not sure what that's about, and I don't know if it's going to matter at this point. Because what we wanted to do was match as much as possible the existing plan. But over the course of years, and a number of you have been at different healthcare meetings that we've had here, we've talked about, hey, that's an enormous expense, and we may have to trim some of those benefits from the health insurance. And we talked about some things that were minor, maybe there were a larger percentage contribution from the employees to all the way to spousal exclusions, different things that, that would reduce those costs, and we didn't know what we might run into. It appeared to me that we were gonna have to go back to self-insured just to stay within some type of nominal numbers. And lo and behold, she was able to get a proposal, I think, until we make it more public. I don't know if I want to go into details who and what, but I'll just tell you that generally it matches our current plan. There's a little greater consequence if you go out of network, but the networks dovetail. The networks include the major providers, Cleveland Clinic and Akron and Summa, and Children's Hospital. And it includes a lot of the primary care physicians, not all of them, some of them. And the renewal on this comes in at 4.7%. 4.8? I was trying to see. I was trying to make it sound better. You know what I mean? 4.8. So we met with our healthcare committee today. I told them I was thrilled, and that's what I got back from them too. Everybody's expecting something more extreme. We had a reopener, as you know, in the union contracts. If our cost exceeded 10%, that it would reopen the contracts, and it exceeded it by 27%. So we have that meeting coming up next week with the unions. I'm optimistic, based on, we have all union reps in here today, I'm optimistic that we'll be able to get an accord on this and hold this renewal down. And there's reason to believe, at least what's represented, that with this provider, we won't be seeing these crazy renewals, that they're more consistent with their track record is. But at least for 2025, we really are in a position that looks really promising. Among other things that does, it frees up money in those budgets, because we budgeted out 20% for health insurance for all of these. And instead, we'll be dropping that down. So that's part of, we want to make sure that's going to happen, and then do the final tweaks to the budget and get it to everybody. I would think that we'll have that for first reading at our next meeting. Yeah. Okay. Board openings, we will continue to accept those until November 15th. We've had 3 or 4 submittals up to this point in time. Maybe I'll write something about it again. Wait a minute, not November. Yeah, November 15th, next Friday. So once we have all of them in, and we're going to talk to some of them, because a couple of people, they sent them in, they kind of said, didn't matter which board. Then we had a couple that were particular board. So when we have all of those, I'll share those with council, and then we'll decide, collectively the best way to go forward. If you want to introduce some of these people, the easiest way to remember is we got a seat and an alternate on each one of our boards. So we're going to be looking at, I think it comes out to the PAB board. Yeah, we've got an alternate that has to, so we're talking about 2, 4, 6, 7 seats. All right. The fire levy is up next year. It's a 5-year levy. And so the early stages of what we have to do relative to renewal or replacement or whatever we decide to do, but to keep the fire levy, it starts with a resolution asking for a certificate of necessity. If you might remember, it was 5 years ago. So we're going to present this resolution for a certificate of necessity at the next meeting. That doesn't mean you're going to even put it on the ballot. But then that goes to the fiscal office, and then the fiscal office issues the certificate of necessity. And this is our big fire levy, so there certainly is necessity. And then once we have that, then we can have some discussion about going forward. The thinking is that we would shoot for the primary as opposed to the general election, just in case for some other reason you need a second shot at it. But go ahead, Mr. Powell.
So it expires in 25?
Yeah.
The end of 25?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in order to get it on the ballot for the primary, we have to add it to the Board of Elections in early February?
Yes. Yeah. That's why we're trying to start to train down the checks here. All right. And let me see. It's Christmas time again. Some people advance it quicker than others, and we're in that group. But the reason I'm bringing it up right now is we want to do our holiday help for New Franklin families again. And we were able to, last year we collected $4,800. And we were able to provide $400 in grocery and gift cards to 12 different families. So we're starting that collection again, and we'll write about this. We got some donations from the community. We got some from some of the local businesses. Council, etc. We will accept donations through Friday, November 29th. What we do with that, we don't run that through the city, so we make the checks payable to Catherine Smith, and then she does the accounting. We receipt everything out because it's really not something that the city necessarily can do. This is something kind of like the Dragon Boat. We can do it, but the city can't pay it. So that's how that works. So we'll write about that, let you know about that. That's all I got.
Finance report, Sue?
Just a
Oh,
couple.
wait a minute, I got something else. Sorry
Really,
about
seriously?
that. Yeah, really serious. We have a resolution that anytime we have idle equipment that has a potential value of more than $1,000, it has to go to auction, and council has to approve it going to auction just by a motion. So our service director has given us two things that he'd like to take to the auction. One is a 2006 F-250 utility body truck, who he feels the value of it is between $1,500 and $8,000, and his intention would be to start the bidding at $1,200. And then we got a new ball machine last year for the park, because this one was we were having trouble keeping it running. It was a 2008 Smithco ball machine, and they use it to prepare the baseball fields. The value of the machine is between $500 and $3,000, and he was going to start the bidding on that one at $500. One of our local baseball president would like to buy it, but we're unable to do that when we have a value that's potentially in excess of $1,000. It has to go to auction, but we're going to encourage Charlie to go down there and make a bid, because who else is going to bid on this thing? So anyway, so I would ask for a motion to approve the auction of the 2006 F-250 utility body truck and the 2008 Smithco, S-M-I-T-H-C-O, Superstar ball machine.
So moved.
Second.
Who was the second?
Devin?
Oh, you give it to her if you want.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell? Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
And now that's all I got.
You sure?
I'm sure.
You want to rough it through there a few
No, I'm
words?
good. I'm good.
Okay, so basically took my thunder with the budget. I was
Oh,
going to
sorry.
update you on the budget. That's okay. That's okay. But just to let you know that that's the reason that we've been kind of holding up getting the final together, because we want to know what those numbers are, because we're going to reduce some of those appropriations and make a few changes. We are going to get it to the department heads so they can review it first as soon as we get that cemented down. But we're really happy about what that looks like. That's going to be a big help to the city. Another note, Stephen Cook, who we spoke about earlier, asked me if I would, since he talked to you about the phones, he wanted to know if each of the council members would like their own telephone number, which we could do with the new system. You don't have to pay for it or anything. It's just a city telephone number, but it will be, available on your phone. You can put a voicemail, on it. You can let it ring and answer it all the time, or you can send it to voicemail or whatever. But you will be able to give your constituents an actual specific phone number that only goes to you. And so he wanted to know, would you like to do that? And if so, he can make that happen. So he asked me to make sure that I asked you tonight, so that's what I'm doing. So if you'd let me know, I'd greatly appreciate it. But it seemed to me that it would make sense, especially if you want people to be able to call you directly, over issues then you can say, hey, this is my direct dial. But it's up to you what you want to do, so just let me know about that.
I'm a
Lastly,
yes.
oh, go ahead.
I'm a yes.
You're a yes, okay. Anybody else?
Yes.
Are you all kind of in favor of that?
And that would be through the app and everything that he was talking about, right?
Just like he talked about it.
That's very nice.
It'll be nice, yeah, it'll really be nice. Okay, great, thank you. One other thing that I want to mention that isn't necessarily, New Franklin related. Most of mine have heard that, there was a fire up in Coventry, and two of the kids from the high school were killed in that fire. Horrible thing. But I wanted to let you know, and some of you may know, the McDonald's up there by Acme on November 7th is going to give 15% of all the proceeds that day toward their burial costs and their medical expenses. So I guess I would like, everybody who understands what this is, if you can just go to McDonald's that day and help with their expenses, I think that would be very helpful.
What's the date?
November 7th.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. So if you could do that, that would be great. I think that would help out that family a lot. The grandmother, as far as I know, is still in critical condition. So yeah. I just wanted to mention that my kids go to Coventry because we live in the northern part of New Franklin. So, and my grandson who lives with me is a freshman, and the boy Adrian was a freshman on the football team. So he knew the people, and so I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. So that's all I have.
Dude, real quick, just to go along with that, the Upper Deck is also doing a fundraiser on Sunday. They're having a $15 spaghetti dinner, 50-50 tickets, basket raffle. 100% of the proceeds go to the family, and that's this Sunday from 1 to 4 at the Upper Deck. So,
Thank you.
All right, any old business?
real quick, you mentioned about the voters today, or yesterday. Looking at the numbers and the way people voted, it was very encouraging to see that there were a lot of flexibility in those numbers. It showed that people looked at the charter amendments, they read them, and they made decisions based on, as opposed to just going through and saying yay, 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 or nay, nay, nay. So I think it's great that the citizens made the effort to really look at it and make a good decision. So I thought that was fantastic. The police department, again this year, as they've done for a number of years, will be collecting food for the Barberton area food bank. But PACM, yeah. They've done this, like I said, a number of years. They will come to your house and pick it up, pick up the food donations. Just give them a call, let them know. They'll be out on Saturdays between 10 and 2, coming up, knocking on your door, and if you call them ahead and say, I've got something, or I'm just going to go up to random houses. So if you'd like to make a donation, give the police department a call. They'll put you on the schedule, and officers will come out and collect the food. Or you can drop the food donations off here at the police station. And it's always been a great thing and wonderful thing to do. So.
And also, Jim, you can donate money to that
Absolutely.
Barberton Community Ministries, and they can buy so much more
Yep.
than we can.
Yep.
In fact, all of the food banks can do that. You can donate to any one of them.
Sure.
And people really need that right now.
Yep, I agree 100%. That's all I have.
Any other more business?
The New Franklin Police will also have the burgers and veggies on the 21st, I believe, at the Manchester McDonald's. So that raises funds for the Shop with a Cop. So 21st, get more Big Macs. A lot of them coming up my way.
On the 21st, did you say that?
Yeah, the 21st, 4 to 8. There'll be cops inside working, so maybe something fun for the kiddos to go interact with as well.
Any new business? Seeing none. We got a second version of our public comments. You guys heard anything that you'd like to ask questions about during tonight's meeting? Feel free. Any public comments? All right. Do we have a need for executive session?
We do not.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Okay.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Our next meeting will be November 20th at 6 p.m.